Very good morning. This is Mr. Roland Tan, your English coach, and dare I say, your grammarian. Now, before we go into the basics of the topic today, I thought it would be good for me to just talk about the importance of learning English grammar. Grammar is like the nuts and bolts of any object that we want to create. They are the building blocks of the language. If I can put it, the nuts and bolts of a model is like grammar to the English language. Granted the fact that most students do not like grammar. And I happen to be a grammarian, and I try to convert their thinking that it is not as daunting, neither is it as difficult as what one might think about grammar. In fact, it can be quite interesting, and I will show you why it is something not to be avoided, but to be embraced because it is fun. It is far from being distasteful. It's far from being tedious. It is not anything that is so difficult to grasp. Quite on the contrary, I'm going to show you the fun way of learning grammar. Now, for some who are into music, think of grammar as the scales and arpeggios that you need to master before you can be proficient in playing a piece of music, say on the piano. Well, it may be tedious in the beginning, but the fruits of the labor will be evident when you are flexible with your fingers, when you find that eventually you are able to flex your fingers on the keyboard fluently, and that is the result, the hours of practice that you put into your skills and arpeggios. Well, for those who are not so musically inclined, perhaps you might want to think of the nuts and bolts of English as like the formula to mathematics. Well, it is both a good and a bad news. You see, the thing about formula to mathematics is that it offers you something concrete to grasp, something that you can put a finger to it, something that you can remember and you can apply it. And every time you applied it, 10 out of 10 times, if you applied it correctly, you're going to get 100%. Say, for instance, the area of a square or a rectangle. You can't go wrong if you remember the formulas length times breadth. Any quadrilateral, for that matter, a regular quadrilateral, you just need to know the formula. Whether if it's a small square, a big square, a small rectangle, medium-sized rectangle, or a gigantic rectangle, all you need to know is the length and the base. That will give you the area. Conversely, if you know the area and you do not know one of the lengths of the rectangle, you can work backwards to get the dimension of the other side. Why am I saying this? Well, English is such a fluid thing. Many who are into learning the language will find that there's just so much to learn. There's so many words that one has to master. And Where do I begin? Do I start from the dictionary? Do I read all the words from the dictionary? Do I practice 20 words of spelling every day? But what happens if those words that I learn and they don't come out in my examination? Well, oh, too bad. Yes, I would not know the meaning of those words. Or for that matter, how do I know how to, um, you know, combine sentences together? How do I comprehend a passage? I can't possibly know what kind of story, narrative, personal recount, expository text that will come out in my final assessment. And how do I prepare for it? Well, the truth of the matter is that English is so broad. There's nothing much you can prepare for a summative assessment. But the good news, remember I mentioned the bad and the good news. The not so savory part about grammar is, of course, it needs labor, I wanted to say, effort, not so much labor, but plain good effort and memory work to be proficient, or at least at the beginning. But once when the grammatical rules have sunk into you, you'll be surprised that it becomes so natural that you don't even begin to think about, what kind of rules do I apply to this particular syntax. So that is the not so savory part of learning grammar. But the good news is this: learning grammar is interesting because you just need to know the rules. Once you know the rules, you get them right, and you can prepare for any kind of assessment by just revising through the rules if you are not too sure. And that really will build up one's confidence in not only preparing for a test, but also in using the language to converse. And in addition, the grammar is something that is kind of fixed through the years and probably decades. So nothing much has changed really. But of course, having said that, there are also many exceptions to grammatical rules that one has to be mindful of. But that will come at a later stage. Master the basic rules first and take care of the exceptions at a later stage. So, grammar is to English very much like formula is to mathematics. So, unlike vocabulary, comprehension, reading, oral, writing, composition, which are something that will require time and persistent effort to master. Grammar, on the other hand, does not take half as much time for you to achieve tangible success. You'll be able to reap the benefits of learning well your grammar even within a day or two. I'll show you later. Once you know the rule of grammar, the next minute somebody were to flash out a question that tells you on that, you can just answer it straight away with absolute confidence. What is a plural? of bag, obviously bags, because I've learned it. So there's a singular for one item, plural for many items, and most of the nouns have a suffix of s appended to the root word when we want to make it into a plural noun. So that's what I meant by grammar being an easy component of the language for you to learn and master within an amazingly short time. Right. So once again, I would like to emphasize that grammar is the building block of the language, and it is the foundation that you need to master before you can even write a good paragraph or a composition for that matter. Well, there are so many facets of grammar, and we have to be patient to master each component one at a time. I've listed here a few examples. Word class. From a young age, we have learned what a noun is, what a verb is, what an adjective is, what an adverb is, and so on. These are the various word classes, and they are used in different ways depending on how we want to express a particular idea or how we want to refer to a particular object, tangible or abstract. Tenses. Well, we learn about what takes place in the past must be written in the past tense, and what takes place in the present must be in the present tense. A fact is always in the present tense because it is always true. Connectors are simple, innocent words that join two sentences together. Without connectors, it will be very, very cumbersome for us to communicate because we will be rambling on and on. Or there will be so many full stops and repetition of subjects that makes communication unnecessarily difficult and tedious. And we come to subject-verb agreement, which is the topic of today's grammar lesson. So without further ado, I'm going to plunge you straight into subject-verb agreement. Hang in there.